Hey man, here's the harsh truth. Nobody teaches you this in school. You don't learn it from movies, from music, or from the advice your friends give you. You only learn it the hard way, through experience, through heartbreak, through bleeding emotionally when you try to love a woman the way you thought was right. At first, it feels simple. You think love means loyalty. You think passion means permanence. You believe that if you give your best, if you stay true, if you treat her with care, then she will never leave. You take her words at face value. When she says, forever, you believe it. When she cries in your arms, you think it means she'll never hurt you. In your innocence, you are happy, because you don't see the storm hiding behind the beauty. But the deeper you go into understanding women, their psychology, their emotions, their patterns, the more complicated it becomes to actually love them. Because once you peel back the fantasy, the fairy tales, the romantic illusions, you begin to see reality. You realize how much of what is spoken doesn't match what is felt. How often their feelings aren't grounded in logic, but shaped by impulse, by moods, by validation. And when that truth hits you, it doesn't turn you into a hater. You don't suddenly despise women. No, what happens is something inside of you quietly changes. You lose the ability to love blindly. You stop giving recklessly, because now you see too much. When you were naive, it was easier. You didn't analyze her moods, her words, her contradictions. You simply trusted. You believed in forever, in happy endings. But then she ghosted you, or cheated, or replaced you without hesitation. That's when the mask slipped. That's when you saw the patterns you never wanted to believe were real. You start paying attention. You notice the contradictions. You study what really attracts women versus what they say attracts them. And when you uncover the truth, it hurts deeply. Because now you realize that love, for many women, isn't a commitment, it's an experience. It's temporary. It's not rooted in reality but in feelings, and feelings always shift. That realization doesn't necessarily make you bitter, it makes you cautious. You notice how quickly loyalty can evaporate. How 1 week you're her entire world, and the next week she's bored, restless, distracted. You see how easily she can cry over losing you, yet text another man before her tears have even dried. Not because she is evil, but because she has been conditioned to believe that her worth comes from constant attention, constant validation. And suddenly, love doesn't feel sacred anymore. It feels transactional. Conditional. Fleeting. You begin to understand how society shapes this dynamic. How modern culture teaches women to chase excitement instead of loyalty, to follow butterflies instead of stability, to glorify walking away from a good man if he doesn't constantly stimulate their emotions. Meanwhile, men are condemned for doing the same. You start seeing the double standards everywhere. And that's when the shift happens. You stop worshipping love. You stop romanticizing women. You grieve, not because you hate them, but because you wanted so badly to believe in the dream. But now, you can't unsee the truth. You know how to attract them. You know how to play the game, to spark emotions, to trigger imagination, to create mystery. You can pull their attention, their affection, their desire. But deep down, you also know it isn't built on anything solid. You know that the moment you stop feeding the fantasy, the moment you stop fueling her emotional high, she will drift. Not because you failed, but because her attention was never meant to stay rooted in depth. So now, you play differently. You don't chase anymore. You watch. You observe. You analyze. You love with your eyes open. And that kind of love comes with limits. You stop being surprised when she leaves. You stop overthinking when her energy shifts. Because now, you can predict it before it happens. You can see the slow fade, the loss of spark, the distant eyes. You no longer take it personally, you simply recognize the cycle. And here's the thing, sometimes this awareness feels like a blessing, sometimes like a curse. Because now you see everything. You see how often arguments aren't about resolution but about control. You see how tests aren't about clarity but about craving dominance. You see how apologies sometimes aren't about regret, but about regaining your attention. And you feel compassion, yes. You understand why it happens. But at the same time, the way you love changes forever. That blind, reckless, all-consuming love, the kind where you give without boundaries, dies quietly. And what's left is a love that is cautious, measured, and disciplined. Because now you know, peace is worth more than passion. Respect is worth more than desire. Loyalty is worth more than excitement. You don't hate her, you just no longer let her chaos own you. You've grown. You've evolved. And the irony is this, once you understand women at this level, you also realize how easily you can attract them. You've learned the game. But now, it feels like a game you don't even want to play anymore. Because your heart isn't in illusions. It longs for clarity, for depth, for consistency. So, instead of giving your energy away freely, you filter. You choose carefully. You protect your peace at all costs. Because now you understand that love, if misunderstood, can cost you everything. But peace. Peace will rebuild you. Peace will make you whole. Peace will make you untouchable. And once a man has tasted peace, real peace, he will never trade it again, not for beauty, not for romance, not for temporary affection. Because behind those fleeting highs, there is often chaos, instability, and confusion. And you no longer have the energy for it. So you walk differently now. You move with weight. You speak with intention. You love with boundaries. Because the more you understood women, the more you realized love isn't about giving her everything she dreams of, it's about being everything you need first. And if she can meet you there, with respect, clarity, and loyalty, then you build together. But if not, you walk away. Not in anger. Not in bitterness. But with calm, quiet strength. Because you finally know the difference between fantasy and freedom.